Hello, this is SimsBerrry and this is my Machinima guide. In this part, I'll be focusing on filming and reshade because I know a lot of you are always wondering what my reshade is, and also a big portion of the footage that I got from this film session is just me messing with my reshade, so I felt like it was appropriate to address that. So yeah, let's just get started with reshade. I'm kind of assuming that you know how to use reshade. If you don't, I'll put a video in the description which tells you how to install reshade and how to use it. And yeah, go watch that first, because if you don't know how to use reshade, you'll be a bit confused. So I have about 50-ish reshades in my game, and when it comes to filming, I usually modify them. And I use a ton of them. So for the Knopfler effect, I usually use 4 main reshades and then 2 or 3 other ones, depending on what scenes I'm filming, if it's a new setting, if it's new characters, because you shouldn't really use the same reshade for everything unless it's like a very basic one, or if you're just making, I don't know, like a realistic series and for some reason your reshade is like super great and works with every character and every lighting and every furnishing and it looks good at day and at night. If you found a reshade that works like that, I'm super happy for you, because the ones that I use are very specific. I have a reshade for in between at day, I have a reshade for in between at night, I have a reshade for axis at day, I have a reshade for axis at night, and I also use some different ones for buildings and axis where I need a lot of neon signs, for example, or for the forest in between. I know I also had to tweak my reshade a lot because it was very dark, so definitely tweak your reshades. Depending on where you're filming or what your characters are. Just do what I did, where I decided to go film the character and I sort of checked how the reshade looks on her, if she looks too white, if she looks too dark, if the bloom is too much, if it's too little, if the colors are all right, all that sort of stuff, because it's really gonna depend on the reshade. Some reshades are really great for characters that have blue clothing or pink clothing, and the others are really great for characters that have green clothing or white clothing or yellow clothing. Me, for example, the reshade that I use for Axis is designed for their white, blue, pink color scheme. So when I have people in the office, I usually have them wear those colors so that they match and they look good with the reshade. Also, if you have characters of different skin tones, make sure that the reshade works great on them all, because sometimes if you, for example, set the shadows too strong, the more dark skin characters will look weird, they're not gonna show up, their details are not gonna pop out. And if you use too much bloom, if you have the setting for that too low, maybe your Sims will start to bloom. This is what happens in the Knopfler effect often. Sometimes if Astra is in the sun, her face is just shining like a star, which, you know, fits her character, but she's supposed to be human. So I kind of mess up my reshades. Don't be like me. Make sure that it looks good on all characters. And yeah, make sure that it fits your vibe, that it fits your color scheme that you chose. So if you want to know what my reshades are, I can't really share them. They're not mine, but they're also not the ones that are online. So I'll put the links to some of those I use in the description, but just be aware that when I use them, they're heavily modified. But even when they're in their original state, they're still very pretty, and who knows, maybe they'll be perfect for the scene you're working on. I also don't think that reshade is necessary at all. I personally really love using it because I absolutely hate editing. My program is bad, it crashes a lot, so I don't want to spend more time in it than I absolutely have to. So reshade has been a blessing for me, but it's also a bit messy because it can lag your game a lot, especially effects like depth of field or the shadows. Any sort of very heavy effect, it's gonna affect your game and your computer. So when I used a laptop before, my game was running on like 10 frames per second if I was in a very busy set and had a lot of reshade. You can see that in a couple of scenes, for example in a diner scene in Retrivi. It's sort of laggy. But oh well, what can you do? So if your computer isn't liking reshade, if you see a drop in performance, definitely think about reshade again. Do you really have to use it? Can you maybe turn off some effects? Definitely start with depth of field or choose a different depth of field because some work better than others. And if it all goes wrong, then stop, breathe, and just know that it's gonna be alright because you can just do coloring in post. It's fine. There's a free program, DaVinci Resolve, that is super great when it comes to color correcting, and I'll be sure to put a tutorial on how to use that in the description. I'm currently trying to switch over from the program that I use right now to DaVinci because maybe then I'll actually start liking coloring. Who knows? But yeah, I think this is all I have to say about reshade. Tweak your reshades. Don't ask what my reshade is because I can't tell you really, and have fun with it. So filming, this is the next part. This is the last part. How do I do it? So I'm kind of assuming that you're not a beginner, that you know how to get to your camera, that you filmed the Machinima before. If you have no idea what you're doing, I have a few videos down below that you should definitely check out, just so you know what you're doing, that you know how to get to your camera, that you know how to move your camera, that you know how to set your parameters, all those stuff that to someone that has been making Machinima for like 5 years is completely normal. Because I don't want to make this video too long, and I also feel like I would miss something out just because everything is so normal to me that I'd probably forget it. But yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about is angles. So make sure to have interesting angles, I guess. Usually when I build, I have an angle in mind. When I start filming, I just use those angles and I work from that. I try to follow the 180 rule. That rule is basically that you should always film from one side to not confuse the audience too much. I know that I don't follow it always because I'm lazy. And sometimes I like to break it on purpose, and I did that in the previous episode of the Knopfsee effect, and I really feel like that sorta elevated the scene. So following some film rules is always fun, and you know, they exist for a reason. So definitely check them out. I'm not gonna tell you all the rules because, you know, I can't list all the rules. I don't know what all the rules are. I know some rules, but I don't know if what I remember is totally correct. So definitely check out some film compositions, for example. There's sort of effect that different camera angles have. For example, if you're filming something from far away, if you're filming for something from really close, if your camera is above a character, if it's sort of looking them from below, you know, this sort of feeling of being like inferior or superior, all that stuff. To me, it's really interesting to read that. To you, it may not be, but it's fine. I think a lot of these rules we already do subconsciously, or if you watch a lot of movies, you'll be able to pick up what you're supposed to be doing, but have fun and make something that looks good to you, because it'll probably look good to other people as well. Yeah, so now I'm just gonna talk a bit about my preferences when it comes to filming, because I don't really know what else to talk about. But yeah, when it comes to little machinimas, I really like to start with a sort of like establishing shot. So here I shot the city, and I'll also end with a sort of white shot, establishing. I don't know if it's called establishing anymore, probably not, but like a white shot to connect the beginning and the end. I think that's cool. I don't know if anyone else thinks it's cool. I don't know if it's a rule, probably not. But to me, I like to do that, so I'm gonna tell you that I like to do that. I also like to have my camera moving slightly, not too fast. I think a lot of people move their camera a bit too fast, and then it gets sort of chaotic. But also the camera speed should depend on what you're filming. So if you're filming like an action sequence, definitely, you know, a slow panning shot isn't gonna cut it. But if you're filming like a confession scene in like a romantic drama, you probably don't want the camera to be like spinning around and like handheld and have like a handheld effect where you feel like you're running away from an explosion, when in reality the senpai is telling his girl that, oh, I love you very much, will you accept this prom invitation from me, you know? But who knows, you know, maybe it's like a comedy, and in that case that could work. So, you know, always have in mind your genre, what you sort of wanna the audience to feel, because with the angles that you choose, with the camera movement that you do, you are going to influence what your viewers think about the characters and how they feel about the machinima. Which is kind of crazy, but it's true. I am a sucker for over-the-shoulder shots. I didn't really do any in this one because I didn't have a dialogue, but in my machinima I use those a lot. I also really like shots from like a bird's perspective. Those are fun if I have something artsy to show. I like to experiment, and I think you should too, because that's what's fun. It's fun finding new ways to film the character, especially if you're filming in the same set over and over again, because it can get boring. I know I was so bored of filming in that same house for the canopse effect, but I tried to play around, find new angles to keep the audience interested and to keep me from falling asleep while editing the same footage over and over again. And lastly, I kind of want to talk about some mistakes that I see people make when it comes to filming. I'm not sure if all of them are mistakes per se. It's just things that I personally feel don't really work. So the first thing is when you use an animation and it's not looping and you see it play over and over again, I think it's a bit weird. Usually it's like someone looking over the shoulder or sitting up or turning around, and you should only film the sim do that movement like once Unless you're doing it for like, I don't know, Korean drama sort of style where you see the character get up like 5 billion times and you see the camera from 5 billion angles. But when you're just filming a normal sort of series and a character turns around, they should only turn around once, because otherwise you're also dragging the story a bit, because it's like, okay, they moved around, now what? Oh no, they're moving around again. Why? So keep in mind, the non-looping animations you should probably only use for one movement. The looping ones are usually fine, they're usually idle, so or like talking animations. But also don't use the same talking animation on like 5 different Sims that are in the same scene. I know I've done that as well because I was lazy and I saw like 10 Sims and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make everyone talk, give them talk one animation from this folder, and it's gonna be great. I mean, they're in the background, who's gonna care? But you can see it and it's really off-putting. It's also off-putting where you use a lot of those animations where the Sim is almost completely still, it's just their mouth moving. I know I do that as well, so like, we all do that because sometimes you just gotta do it. But definitely for like crowd scenes, try to use animations where the characters move a bit. If you don't have many talking animations, at least have them start at different intervals, because so they look a bit different. Because if they are all in sync, it's not gonna look that good, in my opinion. Also, as I said before, it's really off-putting where you have camera movements that don't fit with the series, so really fast shots where they should be slow and really slow shots where they should be fast. Another thing that I would suggest you do is to cut the videos, the clips, where the camera stops moving. So, for example, you usually film and set the point 6 and point 7 and you move between them, like the parameter thing, I don't know how to call them. But if you keep the camera rolling for a few more seconds, make sure to not leave that in the machinima, because it's really off-putting where for no reason the camera first is smoothly moving and then drastically stops. In my opinion, that's really annoying. So definitely watch out for that. But yeah, also for all of this advice, keep in mind that if you're doing something on purpose, it's probably looking good. I'm just telling you this in case you aren't aware and you're doing it not on purpose. Because sometimes having all the Sims do the same animation is great. Sometimes having the camera stop abruptly is great. Sometimes having the wrong camera speed for a certain moment is also great. So for everything that you film, you know, keep in mind what you want to portray, what you want to make. And yeah, I think that's all when it comes to my advice. I hope that you learned something new. I hope that I helped you. I was going to make one more part about editing, but my footage for that part is really messy because my program kept crashing, so I think this is my last part of my Machinima guide. I really hope that I helped, and if you have any more questions about filming or reshade, just not what my reshade is, ask me down below. Bye bye!